Georgine was once full of potential, poised to become a renowned movie star in the future. However, fate had something entirely different in store for her. One fateful day, just steps away from reaching her home, she vanished without a trace. In the summer of 2006, 14-year-old Georgine Kruger moved with her family to Berlin. Her parents had divorced a few years prior, and she now lived with her mother and her younger sister. Her older brother, Tommy, was 22 at the time and lived on his own. As the new girl in class, Georgine found it difficult to make friends. The other girls in school were not fond of the attention she received from the boys, who were drawn to her looks, though Georgine wasn't aware of the extent of her popularity. She took great care of her appearance, always wearing the latest trends and enjoying makeup. Georgine dreamed of becoming an actress and even considered modeling as a possible career. She often danced in front of the mirror, trying out different outfits, imagining herself on a grand stage. Her love for movies, especially Indian films, inspired her as she practiced the actors' moves and sang along to their songs while watching TV. On Friday, September 22, 2006, it seemed like her dreams were on the verge of coming true. Georgine had been offered a small role in the film Turkish for Beginners. She was told that she would receive a call on Monday, September 25th, with a final decision. The filming was set to take place during the upcoming fall break, and Georgine eagerly anticipated the news. Over the weekend, the wait felt endless for her, as she looked forward to confirming the role she had long hoped for. Monday, September 25, 2006, finally arrived, and despite being distracted, Georgine managed to get through her school day. She hurried home after class, determined not to miss the call from the agency. After leaving school, she headed straight to the bus stop, boarded bus number 27, and traveled just a few stops before getting off. From there, she had only some feet to walk before reaching her house. Around 2 p.m., she was seen getting off the bus. At home, her grandmother and younger sister had already prepared lunch and were waiting for Georgine to join them, but she never arrived. At 2 p.m., her grandmother tried calling her, but there was no answer. Concerned, she wondered if perhaps Georgine had missed the bus or stopped to talk to someone. Time continued to pass, and when another attempt to call went straight to voicemail, her grandmother's worry grew. Her grandmother decided to contact the school to check if anything unusual had happened. The school confirmed that Georgine had attended all her classes and left for home as usual. Her teacher did mention that Georgine seemed distracted that day, but her grandmother knew why. Georgine had been eagerly awaiting the call from the casting agency all weekend. As more time passed, her grandmother grew increasingly anxious. When Georgine's mother returned home, she was informed of the situation and immediately felt that something was wrong. It was entirely out of character for Georgine not to show up on time or contact her family. She was always punctual and responsible. Her phone, too, was never switched off. She quickly called the police to report her daughter's disappearance. Initially, the police considered several possibilities. Could Georgine have run away? Had she gotten into a disagreement with family or friends? Or maybe done something impulsive in the name of teenage love? However, It was crucial to remember that Georgine had been expecting an important call from the casting agency that day, and she wouldn't have missed it for the world. When Georgine was last seen, she was wearing light blue ripped jeans, ankle-high brown-heeled boots, and a white denim jacket. She also carried a pink backpack with long straps and had her mobile phone with her, which was later found to be switched off. By tracking the phone, detectives determined that the device had been active at 2:06 p.m., but by 2:08 p.m., it was turned off. It seemed unlikely that Georgine, so close to her home, would have suddenly changed her mind and gone elsewhere, especially when she was eagerly waiting for the casting agency's call. She was seen getting off bus number 27, confirming that she had been just minutes away from her house. A large search operation was launched in the neighborhood where the Kruger family lived, but Georgine was never seen again. All nearby attics and basements were thoroughly searched, with police using trained dogs to detect human remains. Investigators questioned local residents and Georgine's classmates and checked into several offenders who were either out on bail or had recently been released from prison. The Kruger family distributed flyers with Georgine's photo, and posters with her description were put up throughout the district. Her mother personally went door to door, seeking any clues about her daughter's whereabouts. Despite these extensive efforts, the investigation stalled with no substantial leads. Georgine seemed to have disappeared into thin air, just some feet away from her home. Weeks turned into months, and 3 years after her broad daylight disappearance, a second search operation was organized. This time, search dogs were used again, trained not only to detect human remains, but also to find living individuals. The dogs started their search from the bus stop, but instead of leading investigators to the Kruger home, they were directed toward the suburbs. Police searched the wooded area but found no trace of the girl's presence. It wasn't surprising, given the difficulty of tracking a scent after 3 years. Unfortunately, the renewed efforts didn't yield any new leads and the case remained stagnant. Years later, in 2016, another search was conducted, this time with a glimmer of hope for results. Residents of the neighborhood where the Kruger family lived were once again interviewed, and there was a small breakthrough. Neighbors recalled a 30-year-old unemployed man who had lived in the area. He spent hours on his porch, watching teenagers pass by, seemingly enjoying the view. He was frequently seen engaging young girls in conversation, often saying inappropriate things and asking provocative questions, like whether they had ever been with boys, hinting that he could help them with such matters. This man, identified as Ali, was known to try to downplay his age and present himself as younger in order to win the attention of teenage girls. Although the girls didn't fear him, they found him odd and kept their distance, which made the neighbors take notice of his behavior. Ali lived in the same apartment complex as the Kruger family. He had 3 children and lived with his wife. Unemployed and struggling with debt, he took on odd jobs and relied on social benefits to make ends meet. Despite his financial struggles, Ali had a fascination with luxury cars and fashion, even though he could only dream of owning them. When he wasn't watching the girls, Ali would spend his free time in a Turkish cafe located in the ground floor of the apartment building, meeting with acquaintances. Though he didn't have close friends, he regularly interacted with locals. The police paid close attention to the testimony about his suspicious behavior and checked his criminal history. In 2011, Ali had been involved in a violent incident where he lured a 17-year-old neighbor into his basement. The girl had been walking home with a friend when Ali, standing on the porch of his house, offered her a new mobile phone. Tempted by the offer, the girl hesitated, but eventually followed him to the basement where he claimed the phone was stored. However, there was no phone waiting for her. Instead, Ali confessed that he had been in love with her for a long time and was willing to leave his wife just to be with her. When the girl rejected his advances, Ali struck her on the back of the neck, causing her to collapse. He then sat on top of her, and despite her efforts to resist and scream, the girl was unable to fight him off. After the assault, Ali handed her a tissue to dry her tears and threatened her to keep quiet, warning her not to tell anyone, not her family, friends, or the police. The girl nodded in agreement, but once she escaped the basement, she headed straight to the police station and reported everything, pointing directly to Ali. She also gave a detailed description of the basement, mentioning specific details that confirmed her story. According to her, the basement looked more like a personal hideout where Ali spent his free time, rather than a cluttered storage space. In 2012, Ali was sentenced to a 1.5 years of probation for assaulting the 17-year-old girl, along with charges of bodily harm. During his trial, Ali claimed that the girl had asked for a mobile phone and followed him voluntarily. He denied any wrongdoing, asserting that he wouldn't jeopardize his family's well-being, and accused the girl of fabricating the story. However, the girl's account matched with the evidence and Ali was found guilty. This case bore eerie similarities to Georgin's disappearance. Both girls had been returning home after school and vanished in the same area where Ali had previously attacked another teenage girl. According to the phone data, Georgin disappeared just down the street from where Ali lived. Georgin would have had to pass by Ali's door in any case. Could Ali have intercepted her somehow? The issue was that the search dog showed no interest in the basement of Ali's house, and detectives lacked specific evidence. No witness statements, no DNA, nothing concrete to tie him to the crime. The only notable detail was that on the day of Georgin's disappearance, both her phone and Ali's were detected in the same area. While this could suggest they were together, it might simply indicate that they lived on the same street. Interrogating Ali seemed futile without substantial proof, as he would likely deny any involvement in Georgin's disappearance. As a result, the authorities decided to use a rather unconventional strategy. They began monitoring Ali's phone calls. Over weeks of surveillance, they discovered that Ali had financial troubles. He was gambling and owed a significant amount. The police decided to exploit this weakness. Instead of engaging in a long-term, costly operation, they chose to infiltrate Ali's circle. An undercover officer was assigned to the case. His mission was to gain Ali's trust and gather any information related to Georgin Kruger's disappearance. Posing as a successful businessman looking to open a car wash in Berlin, the officer introduced himself at the Turkish cafe Ali frequented. The cafe, conveniently located in the same building where Ali lived, became the perfect spot for the officer to establish contact with the suspect. The operation was expected to take time, as any sudden move could arouse Ali's suspicions. The officer gradually became familiar with the cafe regulars, sharing his story about wanting to start a car wash business in the area. He mentioned he was looking for a manager with a good salary, which piqued Ali's interest, especially given his financial struggles. Soon the officer and Ali became inseparable. They even took a business trip to Frankfurt together, deepening their bond. Ali began to believe that his life was about to change, envisioning himself as the manager of the new car wash. Ali tried to present himself as a respectable man, eager not to lose out on the lucrative job opportunity. Ali thought that if everything went according to plan, his financial troubles would be over, and he could finally afford the lifestyle and luxury cars he had always dreamed of. Despite the developing friendship, the case of Georgin made no progress. To move things forward, the authorities introduced another undercover agent, codenamed Susie, into the operation. According to the cover story, Susie was the officer's girlfriend. Her role was to grow close to Allie's wife in hopes of gathering information. Over time, they became close friends, and the two couples often spent time together, hosting parties and even going on vacations. However, even with this deepening connection, the case remained cold, with no evidence linking Allie to Georgin's disappearance. Ali's sister began to grow suspicious of the undercover agents. She felt that they had not entered her brother's life by chance and was skeptical of their motives. She even noticed that they didn't seem like a genuine couple. If Ali had paid attention to his sister's concerns, the situation might have played out differently. However, he was too focused on his potential future as a business manager to listen to anyone. Realizing that Ali was determined to maintain his image in front of his supposed employer, the investigators brought another undercover agent into the operation, the officer's cousin, who had a criminal past. According to the cover story, the cousin was involved in shady activities and was willing to commit crimes. The authorities hoped that by associating with someone willing to break the law, Ali might open up and reveal critical information. With no physical evidence to rely on, they could only hope for a confession. The cousin and Ali quickly bonded, beginning their friendship with a visit to a brothel. Despite initially trying to maintain an image of loyalty to his wife, Ali soon abandoned his principles. The cousin paid for the encounter out of his own pocket, explaining that he had earned the money illegally, which allowed him to spend it freely. This approach revealed two sides of Ali, one as a family man who wanted to work hard for his future, and another as a carefree partier for whom his wife and children were not an obstacle to indulgence. To solidify the operation's credibility, the investigators went as far as renting land for the fictional car wash and signing a fake contract with Ali. All hopes were now pinned on the cousin. If he couldn't extract a confession from Ali, the case of Georgin might remain unsolved. However, in 2018, something unexpected happened. An unknown man called the police, claiming that while he wasn't the perpetrator, he knew where Georgin Kruger's body was. The caller provided coordinates for where the remains could be found before hanging up. Efforts to trace the call were unsuccessful, but a team of specialists was dispatched to the location. The coordinates led to a nearby forest, where an extensive search was conducted, but no trace of the girl was found. It remains unclear whether the call was a cruel joke or an attempt to mislead the investigation further. Unfortunately, the caller was never located, leaving investigators at a dead end once again. Nevertheless, new flyers were created with a special QR code. When scanned, the code allowed people to hear the anonymous caller's voice, in the hope that someone might recognize it and provide a clue. Meanwhile, the detectives tried to set a trap for Ali. They rented his favorite model of Porsche, equipped it with a listening device, and placed a flyer with Georgin's picture and QR code in the back seat. Through the undercover agents, they arranged for Ali and his wife to take a ride in the car, hoping it would spark a conversation about the missing girl. Initially, Ali and his wife didn't notice the flyer, but eventually it caught their attention. Ali became noticeably nervous. He began speculating about who the caller might have been and what information they could have had. Later, Ali took the flyer to the Turkish cafe, showing it to his friends in an attempt to gather more information. He claimed he wanted to help the police. This raised suspicions among the investigators, as they wondered why someone with no connection to the case would suddenly feel the need to collect information after so many years. Ali's actions only reinforced the authorities' belief that they were on the right track. The next phase of the operation was to use the cousin's relationship with Ali to their advantage. The cousin confided in Ali about his troubled relationship with his girlfriend. explaining that he had wanted to break up with her for some time but couldn't because she was blackmailing him. He revealed that he had once killed someone and had confessed this secret to his girlfriend. Now, she was threatening to go to the police if he left her. He sought Allie's advice on how to deal with the situation. Allie sympathized but did not reveal anything about Georgin's disappearance. To accelerate the process, the cousin offered Allie €150,000 to eliminate his girlfriend by any means necessary, even if it meant breaking the law. The detectives knew that Allie was in dire financial straits and had yet to start his job as a car wash manager. The €150,000 could solve all his problems. Ali, eager to seize the opportunity, offered to take care of the blackmailer himself. He began planning various ways to carry out the job, discussing details such as the girl's weight, whether a car would be needed, and the best location for the attack. As Ali considered his options, the trap was closing in. While discussing the logistics of the crime, Ali confessed to the cousin that he had researched online how to dispose of a body. The undercover agent let Ali talk freely, avoiding any accusations of entrapment. During these conversations, Ali eventually opened up about Georgin's disappearance. He described her as an attractive young girl who passed by his door every day on her way home from school. On September 25, 2006, he was waiting at his usual spot when Georgin stepped off the bus. That day, she was in a good mood, smiling and radiant. Ali approached her, asking for help carrying some bags to his basement, offering to pay her for the favor. Knowing her neighbor and not suspecting any danger, Georgin agreed. When Georgin entered, Ali struck her on the head. She screamed in pain, so to silence her, he hit her again, harder this time. Georgin lost consciousness and collapsed. Ali then described what happened next, lamenting his actions but knowing that if he let her go, he would face prison. So he strangled her until she stopped breathing. Ali's detailed account of the assault was too vivid to be fabricated, and his story matched known facts. After killing Georgin, Ali hid her body in the basement for 3 days before wrapping her in an old rug and disposing of her in the trash. Investigators later confirmed that all trash was incinerated, meaning Georgin's remains were completely destroyed. Ali's confession was enough to arrest him, and in December 2018, 12 years after Georgin's disappearance, he was taken into custody while at home with his daughter. All of Ali's properties were searched, but no evidence was found linking him to the missing girl. During questioning, Ali remained silent. He did not speak when charged and continued to say nothing in court. He remained in custody for 1.5 years while he and his family were confident he would be acquitted, as there was no physical evidence against him, no DNA, no body, and no witnesses, just his confession. However, the prosecution compared Ali's previous conviction with his statements and found significant similarities. It appeared to be the work of the same criminal. Ultimately, it was Ali's detailed account of the events on the day Georgin disappeared that convinced the jury and judge of his guilt in the death of 14-year-old Georgin Kruger, a girl who might have achieved fame in the film industry. The news of her neighbor's arrest and subsequent conviction devastated her. On March 17, 2020, Ali was sentenced to life imprisonment. He later claimed he was a victim, stating that he had agreed to act as a hitman for the cousin's girlfriend to protect her and take her out of danger. He intended to go to the police and expose the cousin's plan. Despite his claims of innocence, his confession spoke for itself. Surprisingly, Ali's family also believes he was wrongfully convicted, arguing that the police spent too much time and money trying to incriminate him. They believe the crime was pinned on him to justify the expenses. Only Ali knows the full truth, and perhaps one day his conscience will compel him to fully admit his guilt. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.